In Search of the Titanic, or more infamously known as Tentacolino. Hey, remember that animated Titanic film that was obviously ripping off the James Cameron movie that features talking animals and the mice were like the co-stars?
Party time, it's party time. Everybody's feeling fine 'cause it's party time.
No, not that one. I mean the one that also has the giant dog-faced octopus saving literally everyone from the sinking ship. And, oh yeah, this is the explanation for the disaster.
This all happened because of an evil, greedy human being.
Well, believe it or not, it has a sequel. And yes, this has been commonly regarded to be the worst animated sequel of all time. But some may wonder, why? Out of all the movies in the world to make a follow-up, why this? Well, there hasn't been a confirmed reason, but a few theories have been floating around. Some say it's just to cash in on the 2003 Disney documentary Ghosts of the Abyss. Others would say that because the company Mondo TV had a successful start with their first animated feature, they wanted to make another one to turn it into a franchise for sentimental reasons. But either way, it all ends up with us stuck with something that's trying to say that there's more to tell after the boat sank. So now that we're diving deep to meet up with those that we thought we would never want to see again, can it go even lower than it already did? Let's find out. The story. Let me start this off by saying that the achievements this movie did are absolutely astounding. Believe it or not, it managed to find many ways to make itself even worse than its predecessor, and that one is already considered one of the worst animated films ever. Now, as a movie called In Search of the Titanic, it barely spends any time actually searching for the Titanic. Only right at the beginning and the end does the ship ever get mentioned, and the way they use it to conclude the film is downright embarrassing. But you know what our main characters did find and spend most of their time instead?
We'll give them breathing apparatus and take them to Atlantis.
Yep, you heard it right. After the tragic sinking of the Titanic, our characters find themselves in the lost city of Atlantis with mermaids and mermen. If that sounds completely insane and unsystematic, well, that's because that's all this movie does. The way it builds a story feels like the filmmakers were literally making things up on the spot, just throwing out the first idea that pops in their heads and move forward from there. As a result, the film becomes impossible to follow since the audience would mostly spend their time trying to go through the shock of its unpredictability. It would even give out a couple of such poorly made musical numbers with clueless lyrics and a bad sense of rhythm, including a rap number with a shark. Guess the people at Mondo got jealous at the other animated Titanic film for not thinking of that first.
Yo, 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 look at my teeth. They're so sharp and white and neat. They bring on fear and even some terror. Once they shed, I make no error. With no doubt, and needless to say, the feast is taken with the prey. With no doubt, and needless to say, the feast is taken with the prey.
And no, don't ask me to talk about the songs individually. I got enough to criticize here as it is. But you know what's the worst thing about the plot? While it mostly spends its time on exposition, it doesn't explain enough to make sense of it all. Of course, with a movie like this where you must expect the unexpected, it delivers so many ideas and side plots where most of them end up becoming pointless and sometimes even counters what the characters said before. However, when it comes to the crucial questions that are a key part of the movie, it would literally reject them in front of our faces. Like, this is one of those films that thinks it can do whatever it wants because, well, it's a cartoon, and no one should dare question it.
We're hidden down here.
So before you were like us, and then you changed into what you are now?
Are you telling me we'll really be able to breathe underwater without wearing any masks? Incredible!
And do you think it'll make us just like you now?
Please, bear with me a little longer. All your questions will be answered in a while.
Liar! Liar! He's an asshole and so am I!
Oh, if you think this sounds terrible already, believe me, the madness is just beginning. The animation. In terms of the first film, The Legend of the Titanic, the only positive thing that I could ever mention about it is that the animation is halfway decent. Not great by any means, but at least it can be considered in the levels of standard television animation. With the sequel Tentacolino, on the other hand, the animation received a noticeable downgrade where the visual quality is starting to match up with the quality of the writing. I'll give the film that the execution of most of the designs is alright, but the problem with the animation is that conceptually, it really does look generic. I mean, in terms of the wild ideas that it would present, like Atlantis and how it's also the home of living toys, the designs just look unoriginal and kind of bland. Even Atlantis itself looks more like a generic city of tomorrow with pictures of out-of-place flowers scattered everywhere. It's also worth noting that even the use of colors doesn't look that good. I mean, sure, it does have a big and vibrant color palette, but the way they are used don't feel like they serve a purpose or enhance the world around the characters. But what I mean is that the colors don't have any order or reason, and give the impression that the animators would use all those colors just because. But then when they all come to life with the character animation, well, it doesn't feel like there would be any life on them. In fact, during the musical numbers, the movie would mostly spend its time looping the same animations over and over. Again, seems like another idea the company took from a certain other animated movie. But even outside of that, the movements are more limited than ever, making them look more static and have the action scenes feel underwhelming. I could tell that it has some big ambitions and portrays some moments on a large scale, but ultimately, they mostly feel hollow and even boring. The only way it could get any form of emotion out of the audience would be to use its unexpected shock value. Like, are you not interested in this battle between the mermen and sharks? Well then, let's bring the dog into the fight and he'll use his laser gun to shoot at the rats! Despite all of its craziness, the animation would be the dullest element of the picture, and this time, it's not gonna help to give it any points. The characters. As you can tell, this movie is nothing but a giant pile of problems, both big and small. But one of the most notable of them all that makes this an absolute disaster is the complete lack of consistency. Not just within itself, but especially as a sequel. Outside of the presence of these characters and the fact that the Titanic is already at the bottom of the ocean, it's almost as if it completely forgot the first movie, and instead of doing any research, the film just makes things up as it goes along, much like everything else here. Elizabeth and Don Juan are just there to spectate everything that's going on and do nothing about it, while accompanied by their dog Smile, who now is able to cynically talk to whomever he wants, even to the humans. Also, Tentacles is back.
Hey, buddy! How's it going?
It's great to see you again.
See, even the names get changed. He's back to just be the big good-hearted friend, and even this guy returns. But he also does nothing and just mentions about this treasure in the Titanic that doesn't even matter because no one ever gets to see what it is. As for the Atlanteans, we have the king with unlimited power that has no problem to give anyone that comes to Atlantis godlike powers like breathing underwater and immortality. Oh, but wait till the end of the film. His generosity doesn't end there. Along with him are his servants of mermaids and mermen that would only partly explain what is going on, and Pingo, a living toy silver fish that is the king's ambassador that all he does is jump around and be annoying.
Your Highness, if you carry on encouraging him like this, Pimgo will become so vain he'll end up being totally unbearable.
Oh really, Mrs. Dolphin? You mean like literally everything else in this movie? The only good thing compared to its predecessor is that at least the mice are no longer doing their excruciating protocols. Instead, they are now the villains that team up with the sharks wearing prison gear to steal the elixir of life so that they can all gain immortality to take over the world both on land and sea. Okay! But among them are the return of Top Connors and Ronnie, whom despite not having any personalities, they do the most in this film by being spies for the king to know what the rats are up to. But I will admit, I am glad to see them come back because now the most logical way of explaining this movie is that this is just old Connor's crazy stories. Did I ever tell you that I was in the Titanic when I was a young lad? Really, Grandpa? Oh yes. I remember that when the ship sank, everyone was saved by whales and a giant octopus. Wait, what? Then 3 years later, I sank at the bottom of the ocean for an excursion to look for it, but then I end up in Atlantis. That's where the king and his toys asked me to be his royal spy to stop the evil rats and sharks from stealing the elixir of life for world domination. Honey, you're scaring the children. Now the 2 humans I was with are going to live forever in their own private island and have the Titanic all on their own. Grandpa, I don't think the newspaper would say any of that. The mainstream media is nothing but misunderstandings fabricated by the SJWs. Praise the philosophies of Kanye West! The characters embody many of the movie's issues, like being badly written, highly inconsistent, often serve no point to the movie, and just by their sheer existence makes this all feel unbelievable for the fact that this even exists. As it is deemed one of the worst animated films of all time, Tentacolino should also have the title of the most insane animated feature ever created. One that can only be thought up by a complete madman during his ramblings in the asylum. Its predecessor is also unpredictably horrible, but this one takes it to a whole new level. The writing is as disastrous as the Titanic, the animation sucks, there is no consistency, there is no logic to the things that happen, there are characters that have no point to be here, there are characters that give out more questions than answers, and everything feels like it's out of place. I know I'll sound crazy for saying this, but honestly, if you want to truly know what I'm talking about, just go watch this movie. Seriously, this review, along with everyone else's, is incapable to fully emphasize the true madness of what this movie has in store. I mean, it's free on YouTube, and it's right there to see it for yourself. Oh, it goes without saying, this is a legit holder of the AniMat's seal of garbage. But this could ultimately be the only animated film that is so dangerously crazy, it deserves its own cell in the loony bin. Okay. But in all seriousness, though, hey guys, this is AniMat, and I want to give a huge thanks to Thomas Richardson for his amazing support on Patreon, which allowed him to get some amazing rewards, including this one, where he would go and request me Tentacolino. And oh my god, honestly, the more that you think about it, the more that this is honestly really messed up. Like, this is even more messed up beyond belief, because you think about Mondo's intentions with what they wanted to do with this movie and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know if this is either pure insanity or just downright evil, because what they're trying to do basically is just try to create not a movie, but an entire franchise based on the disaster of the Titanic, where you take the events that happen and you try to sugarcoat the living crap out of it so that kids can somehow go and enjoy it and get a really warped example of how the Titanic really is. And I mean, sure, like, sugarcoating in animated films or in kids' movies in general, they are very common, and you see that happen all the time. Even Disney would be guilty of that as well, even taking real-life events and kind of sugarcoating it in a way, like with Pocahontas. But you gotta give Disney credit, that the grand majority of them, or almost all the time, it would be with fictional stories. It would be stuff that are based on novels, and even the sugarcoating aspect, it's not as bad. They would just do a little bit, just sprinkle some in, and they wouldn't go any further than that. But with this one, on the other hand, like, holy crap. I mean, not only in the first movie would you come in and just say that, oh, nobody died in the frickin' Titanic, everybody was saved by frickin' whales and a giant octopus, but on top of that, now you're really trying to add an extra layer to it by really cashing in, trying to profit out of a real-life disaster by creating another movie and adding in other crazy elements like Atlantis and godforsaken living toys and evil rats teaming up with sharks and all that kind. Oh, good God, what the fridge were they thinking? So yeah, there really is kind of this either insane or malicious intentions where they really try to profit off of the disaster of the Titanic, and it's just beyond messed up. Like, I don't know if the people at Mondo TV truly did believe that everything that happened to the Titanic, they were just thinking about the movie itself. Like, maybe they didn't necessarily believe in the Titanic and they all thought that it's all just a James Cameron movie and nothing more. I mean, you never know with how crazy people are. Like, it could be a possibility, and some people might actually believe that, but yeah, honestly, just by the sheer intentions and by its existence, the fact that it is a sequel, the idea of Mondo TV trying to make a franchise out of the Titanic disaster is one of the most messed up things I have ever heard in the history of animation. I am not kidding. Okay, so, with all that said and done, and now that we do have that out of the way, it is now time that we shall go and move on to another Patreon request. This time, it will be coming from K. McSpadden. So, I just want to start things off by saying that if you guys would like to be like Thomas or Kay, and you guys would like to have some amazing rewards while also supporting me at the same time, including seeing my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you guys would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and I would put onto the animation hat in case I would go and pick a random one to see what else I could review, then all you have to do is go write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. So with all that said, what is it that Kay went out to go and suggest me to review? Well, after all the bad movies I went to go and review, and some of which are even among the worst of animated features, finally, it is now time that I can move on to actually something good. And this might be something that I should actually watch, and something that, as someone with, you know, someone who would always watch animated films and stuff like that, this is something that, yeah, I need to see this, and really something that I must expand on my knowledge of animation, and also, like, on my knowledge of Japanese animation on top of that, because, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I have heard of the name Satoshi Kon, but I've never truly experienced a movie with Satoshi Kon. I know, it's absolutely shocking, but I do have to start somewhere, and this would actually be a very good start. So, with that said, now that I am going to start with my first Satoshi Kon movie, why not go ahead and start with the first Satoshi Kon movie?
Jeffrey, tell me, what was happening?